Hi and welcome to the Stamp Around UK vlog hop. So this is a hop with a difference in that it's a video one, and it's been super fun to see all the other challenges take part in this. So we are going to be focusing on one stamp set and showing you 4 ways of kind of playing with the stamp set and getting the most out of it. So the first card I'm going to show you that I've made, and I will go through the technique with you and demonstrate it, is to colour the images in with the watercolour pencils. So I've chosen to stamp the image in, this one was Night of Navy, but I'm going to show you what it would turn out like if I stamped it in Pretty Peacock and then do a little bit of colouring with you and then move on to the next technique. So to create this lovely kind of spray effect as if it's coming from the back of the jar, by stamping it at a certain angle, it just looks like there's just a lovely huge bunch of flowers sticking behind there. You know, no one needs to know that it's one image stamped twice. So I'm just going to show you how I did that. So getting the image, find sort of roughly the halfway point and then twist the image slightly to the right and stamp. And give it a few seconds for that lovely colour to run in. And then turn your paper around and do exactly the same on the other side. So sort of roughly find the halfway point and then twist it and then stamp. Now it's up to you what colours you'd like to use. If you want to try and kind of keep with the natural colours that these flowers might be, then that's fine. But if you want to play with them, and you could possibly go more sort of subtle and tonal, you know, that's up to you. So I think I might just try that as with my sample. You can see it all super colourful. So I'm going to choose Coastal Cabana, that's Balmy Blue, and sort of just stick to perhaps some bluier shades, and then a couple of greens just to do the leaves with. So I use the lovely watercolour pencils from Stampin' Up. This is the Balmy Blue, and I'm just going to colour in parts of the petals here. And as you can see, I'm not being particularly careful how I'm colouring in. Okay, so this technique is great for people who perhaps feel like, oh, I don't colour in the lines, and do I have to be really precise? No, you don't. So here's Night of Navy, and I'm just going to lay down quite a bit of this in the middle there. And also blend it a little bit into the petals that I've just done. Okay, then I'm going to move on to the Coastal Cabana, and again just very loosely colour that in. Obviously try and stay within the lines so that you don't go onto another flower or anything. Then I'm going to do a little bit of the leaf there. I'm not going to colour this whole image in because we've got 3 other cards to look at. So this is Old Olive. I'm just doing this lovely eucalyptus in this green. And then let's have a look what other options I've got. What's that one? Pacific Point. Oh, we could do these in Pacific. And I'm focusing particularly at the base of the flower here. I'll do these little buds. Right, then your secret weapon is one of the Stampin' blender pens. So these are not to be confused with the Stampin' blends. Those are alcohol-based markers. This is a blender pen, and it's great for using with the watercolour pencils. It basically is a bit like a brush that you would dip in water because it contains a liquid, and you can then use it to help reactivate the pigments in the watercolour pencils and also do a bit of blending. So what I like to do is work at the centre because it's also going to reactivate the ink a little bit. So you can actually use that to your advantage if you want to get a bit of shading in there. Now do remember it is water based, so don't go over and over and over the same spot because it will damage the paper. You just need to have a light touch, blend it all in, and then move on to the next section. So when you're working on one colour, you see I've just worked on the Coastal Cabana, give then your brush, your tip, a little bit of a wipe off to the side before moving on to the next colour. It's just a good habit to get into so that you don't then end up contaminating your work with the wrong colour. And as you can see here, it just blends in. If you've used two colours, it just blends it in beautifully. So I do recommend you have a go with these pencils. They're really easy to use and a really simple way of bringing life to these line drawing images. And as I said, you don't have to be the most fantastic colorist because the blender pen just seems to do all the work for you, and you end up with this lovely coloured image. Now I don't know if you've noticed, but around the edge of the image I've done here, it's slightly grey. So I like to do this sort of edging around an image so it doesn't look like it's just sort of floating there. So all I did was get the basic grey pencil and just do little sort of circular movements all the way around my image like this. And I'm not going to do it all because I think you catch my drift. And then again, use a blender pen and work inwards up to the line of the image, and then just blend that in gently. And if you want to, if you feel that that's not dark enough, you can always go back in and add more when this is dried. And you know, if you want to press a little bit harder, you can. But I think it's just nice to create that little bit of shadowing all the way around. And also don't forget these sections here, perhaps in between the flowers where there's no leaves. It just looks a little bit odd if it's a really stark white in there. So just fill those sections in. Right, so the last thing I want to show you in terms of this card is how to do some splattering. So what I like to do is use a Stampin' Blend marker, or you can use any kind of marker pen that you have. It doesn't have to be the alcohol one. It just happens that these are quite juicy and they're quite good for this technique. And when you've finished the colouring in, you then just get another pen and then just tap it against the pen, and then you end up with this really lovely fine mist of little speckles all over your work. So there we have it. That's card number 1. Oh, sorry, then I forgot to say, then I punched out the jar with the coordinating jar punch, and I stuck about 3 pieces of the card together. After I punched out 3 and then stuck it together, and then just decorated it by punching out this lovely sentiment and then popping a ribbon, coordinating ribbon. And this is from the new colour, Misty Moonlight. Excuse me. Right, let's move on to the next one. Now the next one I know might look similar, but it is using a very different colouring technique. This is using the alcohol pens, the Stampin' Blends, and I used a similar way of stamping it out, but I then coloured it in with the alcohol pens, and you can, I don't know if you can see the difference, but for me the results are, I'm just as happy with both results. They're just different. Then with the punch, I just put a little bit of colour, so that I punched it out in So Saffron, and then blended with a sponge a little bit of cherry cobbler ink just to make it look a little bit more three-dimensional. Then stuck it on with dimensionals and then tied this lovely little ribbon around it and even stamped the lid there because it just looks so lovely and rustic. And then I die cut this lovely little scallop circle from the Tasteful Label dies, and the sentiment is from the To a Wild Rose. Right, let's move on. Okay, I'm really excited to show you this technique. Let's bring the camera back out a little bit. Okay, so this technique is a combination of different types of kind of showing off the stamp, really. And I like the fact that it's basically using two colours. It's using Coastal Cabana and Bermuda Bay, but yet you end up with all this lovely different elements of texture in it. So you need some kind of stamping platform if you've got it, and if you don't, you just need to be able to smack down your stamp onto your paper. But you definitely will need a spritzer. So I'm going to get an image and show you exactly how this is done. Now, which one did I use for that? Oh, it was the sunflowers. Right, let's pop that on there. And this time I'll use Whisper White. And get Bermuda Bay. I don't know if that was the one I used last time. It was either Bermuda Bay or Coastal Cabana. So what you do is you ink up your stamp really well, and then away from your work, spray the stamp at least 5 times. So you want a really good amount of water on there. It's quite saturated. And then what you're going to do is just literally hold it above and smack it down. Did that make you jump? Sorry about that. So you just literally smack it down and then allow it to soak in. Then clean off the excess water from your stamp, and probably best to try and dry that off a little bit before stamping the next image. Okay, so when that's dry, ink up your image again with the same colour, or you can use a shade darker if you wanted to. So if you want to experiment with this technique with other colours, that's fine. I will show you my little kind of like playings before I decided what I was going to do. Now, you can't line it up exactly, so don't even try. Just try and aim it roughly in the same spot, because then you end up with this fabulous kind of watercolour image underneath and then the actual image on top of it. And then just for fun, to play with all the different ways of stamping this image, I stamped a couple more times, just sort of down and around like so. Then I got a piece of Coastal Cabana and stamped onto that, so I probably did stamp Bermuda Bay on Coastal Cabana, and then fussy cut out these sunflowers. I also stamped and punched out a jar and then a sentiment on there, and then also got some of the lovely new ribbon from the Forever Greenery pack and frayed that and stuck that underneath just to kind of really play with the textures. Now, it also happened that I'd had some little sort of blobs of ink had fallen onto my card, so I then kind of made use of those by sticking these fabulous gems over some of those blobs. Now, that might not happen when you do it. If it does, great, but a way that you could kind of make it happen, you know, if you really want it to, is to get a block and then just pop it into the ink pad so you get a bit of ink on it. Then spray your block, obviously away from your work, you know, 3 or 4 times, even 5 times, and then just hold it over your work and then just try and splatter some drops of colour down onto your work like that. It really isn't rocket science. and it is random. So if you're not really a random kind of creator, then you may struggle with this, but I quite like the sort of kind of like water droplet look of it. Right, so that is the third technique, although I think I might end up showing you a few more. Right, this was the next one. So I really like the idea of using these stamps to create an overall background, and out of all the different stamps that are in here, I thought this one, because it looks more kind of rectangular in terms of the actual space it takes up. Hold on, do I get the right one? Yeah, that one. I thought it would be fun to try and repeat Stamp It and then create a focal point using something else. So I'm just going to show you how I did that. I got a piece of a matting layer and inked up with soft sea foam. So I would suggest you choose a lightish colour. You don't need to go for something too dark. And then pretty much stamp anywhere on your piece of cardstock with the design facing upwards. Then ink up again and hover over where you were before, move across and then downwards. And what we're creating is almost like a bit of a brick effect. So then stamp above and then go across, stamp there. And it doesn't have to be exact, it's just to basically cover the whole piece of paper with this lovely floral image. Just that tiny bit there. And that was just so quick and easy to do. Now I can see that my stamp probably wasn't that clean, so unfortunately that little piece has come out darker, but it doesn't matter. We can live with imperfections. Then I grabbed a darker green, so I actually used shaded spruce for this, because I then wanted to highlight the image a little bit more. So I got my shaded spruce. This is probably what made it darker last time. And I'm not going to stamp right on, I mean I could try and stamp right on top of that. Oh, shall I do that? Let's just do it, and it doesn't matter if it's not perfect, because I'm then going to go in there with my blender pen and some other colours and pull, just, you know, give it some extra life really. So here I've got the orange pencil, and like before I'm just going to basically scribble my way through that, and then get a Coastal Cabana, put some colour in there. There we go. And then grab my blend pen and move that colour around. And it does it quite happily. And it doesn't matter that we might have got a little bit of the soft sea foam underneath coming through. It doesn't really hinder it. And then remember, as you're going along, even though I didn't put colour up there, it's revitalising, as it were, the ink, and it's making it a little bit darker. Now this section here, where I'm going to be colouring in the orange, just be aware that, you know, if you touch the green, it will reactivate it. So maybe just try and be a little bit careful not to touch as much as of the sides of the petals, so that you don't end up with just a kind of a brownish mess. And if your tip gets a little bit green, then just clean it off and then work your way back in there. Now there is a way of getting colour direct to your paper. What you can do is get your pen and your pencil and actually you just almost use it like a watercolour paint box really. Just get colour directly from the pencil and then just add it to your work. So if you're finding that it's kind of mixing before you get a chance to finish off colouring it, then you can add colour in this way. And then also, if you know there's berries and things that perhaps you might want to have a different colour and you want it a more saturated hue, then you can do that direct pencil to brush to work straight away. Right, so that's how I did this one, and then I decided to cut out the word thanks and then use this lovely cute little label, and again that's from the Tasteful, what's it called? Tasteful Label dies, and it's got this beautiful kind of scallop and little sort of texture around the edge. It's beautiful. And then this is the Just Jade ribbon. Kindly, my sister Esther sent me a little sample of it, and I just what's the word? Stapled. I stapled the butterfly on there and then tied a little bit of thread around it just to add a little embellishment in that corner, because I didn't feel it needed anything else, and then pop these couple of little gems in there. Right, last project. Oh no, not last project. I want to show you another one. I'm not going to demonstrate it, but I'm going to show you it. This is what happens when you stamp with the Versamark ink, then throw gold embossing powder over it. Can you see that there? And then get the colour pencils and colour in some of the images. And I would suggest you choose the lighter colour pencils. Don't go for the dark ones. So I chose white and yellow and pale blue. And then after I finished that and I stuck on a label and then stamped, I ran that through the Tasteful Textures embossing folder, and I don't know if you can see the lovely texture on there. Okay, so that's another option. Emboss with the images and see what happens. Right, so I want to also show you my playing when I was experimenting to do all the different kind of watercolor splat techniques. And so here you can see where I've perhaps done it in a different colour. So this was like a yellow, I think it was So Saffron, and then smacked it down and then put blue over the top. This one possibly was a pinky, it might have been Cherry Cobbler, and of course when it was lightened with all the water you could do that. I also even tried it with the jar, and contrasting colours, that's super fun, you know, the blue on the pink. And then this one, yeah, I smacked down with Cherry Cobbler and then put blue over the top, and then had to go colouring it in with the Stampin' blends. So really fun different techniques and, you know, results from that one technique. Right, I've got one last project to show you. So for my final project, I want to have a go at doing something 3D. And we've got these lovely gold hoops in the new catalogue. And I want to just create something that's going to hang up with a bow and using these pieces that I've fussy cut out from the stamp set. So I've used the one with the tulips, and I just stamped it several times, and I think I even used Mossy Meadow. I didn't use black, I used Mossy Meadow, and I'm just going to colour these in with some Stampin' blends and then kind of arrange them nicely on my hoop and yeah, create a really pretty little hanging. Sometimes it's nice to do something that's a little bit alternative rather than a card. You know, if someone likes hanging things in their home or little decorative elements, then this is for them really. So I'm not going to show you all my colouring. I'm just going to do a little bit and then come back when I'm finished. Right, so that's light pineapple punch. Now on the 3rd of June, you will not be able to order these anymore. So if you really do like this colour, I suggest you get it ordered. But we do have some new colours joining the ranks of our Stampin' blends. As you can see, I'm just going in there with the dark, just to darken up the inside of the tulips and the bases. There we go. And then I think I'd like some little blue flowers here. And because of the style of the drawing, you don't have to be too strict. It's quite impressionistic, so you can get away with not being too precise in your colouring. I'm just going to come in with, so that one was dark Seaside Spray. And this is a light night of navy. So I'm just going to add a little bit of shading. I'm literally just dotting my pen down. Oh, let's get you in closer. There we go. So I'm sort of dotting the pen across there just to create little shaded portions, and then with the flowers that have got clear centres I'm just aiming for the middle of those. Right, I'm going to finish colouring this in and then assemble it with you. So I've got all my lovely little flowers coloured in here, and I'm going to start arranging them on my hoop. Now I'm presuming that the dimensionals are going to hold it, so we'll try it out and see. So I'm going to pop 3 along there, and then my plan is to kind of build it up, and if I have to put additional pieces on the back to hold it all together, then I will do that. I'm just gonna... Now you could, if you've got the time and the equipment, possibly a hot glue gun, I think, with a good splodge of glue will help hold it all together. So I'm now just popping in some extra dimensionals and laying, I'll put that one on top of that hoop there. I'm going to lay that down there like that. Yeah, that's holding. So anywhere where the hoop can come into contact with paper, then I will try and add some kind of adhesive. So there. And I just like the idea of it kind of almost curving around the hoop like this. It's really quite cute. It's like creating your own little mini flower arrangement. Right, I'm going to turn that over, and I'm thinking it would be helpful to get just some scrap pieces of cardstock to stick onto the back so that it's really stuck well. So I'm just making sure that that's not going to show, and you can just build up the back. Then I think I'll go away and do that, and then I'll come back and show you what it all looks like. So I've stuck all my pieces on, and I've just put some extra pieces on the back to hold it. Obviously, if you want to spend more time on it, and you could actually stamp out and colour in some extra flowers and stick them on the back, so that if it twists round that you've got it all covered. But I just want to have it sort of hanging in from one position. So here I've got some glue dots. I've already tied a cute little bow using that lovely, very soft ribbon from the, I think it's called this is the Forever Greenery bundle. And I'm going to use the gold thread in a second that comes with this, because it's so lovely. I'm just going to pop that in there and then stick that down there and that there, and then here is that lovely gold thread. Now the only thing about this gold thread is as soon as you cut it, it does start to fray a little bit from the edges. So if you don't want it to fray, then either stick a little bit of sellotape on it or knot it as soon as you can. So there we go. I'm just going to knot it here, and then give that a little trim, and there you have a pretty little hanging that you can add to your craft room or hang off a shelf or wherever you'd like to. Right, so very quickly let's just go over the different techniques, and I'm sure you can think of lots of different ways of using this fabulous stamp set. I've only just got started, so it was really nice to be able to have a good play and see what can be done. So colouring, that's the first thing. You can colour in with pencils, as you see I've done here, and then punch out the jar. The jar obviously can be stamped and punched out, but I just like the solid nature of this one, doing it that way. And then here's another one in a lighter colour, sponged, then coloured in with the Stampin' blends. This one here was that really fun water technique where I sprayed the stamp after inking it up and then literally slammed it down and then added some extra pieces of stamping and cutting out. And then this one, the stamped all over type technique in a lighter colour and then spotlighting, you know, a certain area by colouring it in and adding additional colour and then adding some extra embellishments. And the final one, this lovely little hanging, lots of fussy cutting, so if you like it then you'll enjoy this, but I think it's just really cute and would make a lovely little gift alongside a card or whatever you want to send somebody. Right, thank you so much for joining. Please do go and check out the videos in the description below. So do head there. Please leave a comment and let me know which was your favourite. I will number them to make it easier for you guys who comment. So that was number 1. That's number 2. Number 3. Number 4. Number 5. This was the embossing one, so I forgot to talk about that one, embossing. And then number 6. So, I thought I didn't have enough then, but now I've gone and ended up with 6 cards or 6 projects. So take care for now and enjoy the other crafters. Lots of love to you. Bye.